Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into CATL,
Okay.
the Chinese company that's basically like running the show when it comes to electric vehicle batteries.
Right.
You've given us some awesome sources, company reports, market analyses, like the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So get ready, because this isn't just about batteries. It's
Yeah.
about innovation, ambition, and China's like massive impact on the future of transportation.
It really is. It's pretty amazing to think that like just a decade ago, most people hadn't even heard of CATL.
Right.
And now they're this global powerhouse
Yeah,
with a market value that like rivals some of the biggest car companies.
it's true. They're kind of like the Intel of EV batteries.
Yeah.
Quietly powering a revolution.
Right.
But here's the thing, CATL's rise to the top wasn't just by chance.
Right.
It's a story of making smart decisions, calculated risks, and being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting is that CATL didn't start with electric vehicles at all. They actually began by making batteries for consumer electronics.
Oh.
And their first big break came from, of all things, Apple iPhones.
Wait, so the same company that's powering Tesla cars
Yeah.
is once responsible for keeping our iPhones juiced up?
Exactly. The company that preceded CATL,
Okay.
called ATL, focused on those small but powerful batteries we all rely on. And their journey wasn't without hiccups. Early on, they faced a major setback with a particular battery technology that, well, had some explosive tendencies.
Okay, that's not a good look for a phone battery.
No.
So how do they bounce back from that?
Well, that setback forced them to innovate.
Okay.
They had to come up with a new electrolyte formula
Right.
to solve the problem.
Okay.
And it was this innovation that caught Apple's eye.
So a problem became an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Whoa.
They ended up scoring a massive order from Apple for 18 million batteries,
Wow.
which not only rescued them financially, but also solidified their reputation for building reliable, high-quality batteries.
I see. And I bet that deal opened a lot of doors. Did they start working with other big names in consumer electronics too?
You bet they landed contracts with Samsung, Huawei, and even BBK,
Okay.
the company behind phone brands like Oppo and Vivo.
Wow.
This is a key takeaway. By diversifying their customer base, they weren't overly reliant on any single company,
Right.
even one as big as Apple.
Okay, so at this point, they're a big player in phone batteries.
Yeah.
But how did they make the jump to electric vehicles?
Well, ATL was acquired by a Japanese company called TDK,
Okay.
and around the same time, the market for consumer electronics batteries started getting really crowded.
Right.
So they needed to find a new area to grow,
Yeah.
and that's when they saw the potential of electric vehicles.
Was that around the time China started heavily promoting new energy vehicles? Seems like the timing was perfect.
It was impeccable timing. In 2008, the Chinese government really started pushing plug-in hybrids and all-electric cars.
Okay.
CATL was ready to ride that wave and saw a huge opportunity opening up.
So they made the leap from powering our phones to powering our cars.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really strategic.
Okay.
While most Chinese EV battery makers at the time were focused on LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphate,
Right.
CATL went all in on NCM batteries. Nickel manganese cobalt.
Yeah.
Is that a risky move?
It was a calculated risk, for sure. See, LFP batteries were known for being cheaper and safer,
Okay.
but they had a lower energy density.
Right.
That meant cars using those batteries wouldn't have as much range. NCM batteries, while pricier and potentially a bit less safe, offered higher energy density.
I see.
That translates to longer driving ranges, which is a big selling point for electric vehicles.
So they were betting that consumers would prioritize range over cost.
Yeah,
That was a gutsy call back then, wasn't it?
it was, and it really shows how CATL was thinking ahead. They saw the way the market was trending with people wanting electric cars that could go farther on a single charge.
Right.
They made a bet on the future, and it paid off big time.
But CATL's success wasn't just about making a smart bet on battery technology.
Right.
There were also some key policy changes in China that gave them a major boost.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the whitelist. What was that all about?
The whitelist was introduced in 2015.
Okay.
Think of it as China giving preferential treatment to its own domestic battery suppliers.
Okay.
If Chinese car makers wanted to qualify for government subsidies, which were a big deal,
Right.
they had to use batteries from companies on this approved list.
So that essentially protected companies like CATL from having to compete directly with international giants like Panasonic and LG,
Yeah,
at least within China.
exactly. It allowed them to grow and innovate within their own massive market
Right.
without facing the full force of global competition right out of the gate.
Okay.
But there was another factor that played in CATL's favor,
Okay.
and it was a bit unexpected. BYD, another Chinese company that was actually the leading EV battery supplier at the time,
Right.
decided to mostly focus on making batteries for their own cars.
So instead of trying to supply batteries to everyone, BYD kind of stepped back and let CATL take the lead.
That's right. And then to really solidify their advantage, the Chinese government shifted its subsidy policies again in 2017.
Oh, wow.
This time they favored batteries with higher energy density, which played perfectly into CATL's hands since they were already all in on NCM.
Right.
Meanwhile, companies like BYD, which were still heavily invested in LFP, had to play catch-up.
Wow. They really rode a wave of good fortune.
Yeah,
But they also made some bold choices that put them in the perfect position to capitalize on that good fortune.
definitely.
By 2017, they'd surpassed both Panasonic and BYD to become the world's biggest EV battery supplier. Their growth was just phenomenal.
And what's even more impressive is that they didn't just rely on external factors.
Okay.
They were also deeply committed to independent technological development.
Right.
They invested heavily in research and development, constantly pushing the boundaries of what batteries could do.
So they weren't just riding the wave, they were building their own surfboards, so to speak.
Exactly.
But we know they didn't stop there. They started building a whole empire that goes way beyond just batteries.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
Well, they realized that to truly dominate the EV space, they needed to control more than just the batteries themselves.
Right.
They had to secure the entire supply chain, from the raw materials to the manufacturing process,
Okay.
and even expand into related industries.
So it wasn't enough to just be the best battery maker.
Right.
They wanted to be the best at everything that went into making those batteries.
Yeah.
That's ambitious.
It was. And they went about it in a very strategic way.
Okay.
They started by acquiring and partnering with companies that gave them access to the essential raw materials, things like lithium and cobalt. For example, they acquired Millennial Lithium,
Okay.
a Canadian company with huge lithium projects in Argentina.
Right.
This is about more than just getting a good deal. It's about securing their supply chain.
That's really smart, especially when you consider the concerns about those resources becoming scarce and the price fluctuations we've seen. By having direct access to the raw materials,
Right.
they can potentially reduce costs and ensure they have a steady supply.
Exactly. It's a classic vertical integration strategy.
Right.
But they didn't stop there.
Okay.
They also formed partnerships with some of the biggest names in the Chinese auto industry.
Okay.
Companies like SAI, FAW, GAC, Dongfeng, and Geely.
So wait, these are the companies that are actually making the cars?
Yes, CATL established joint ventures with them,
Okay.
ensuring a built-in market for their batteries. But it went beyond just being a supplier. These partnerships also allowed them to collaborate on research and development with these car manufacturers.
So it's a win-win. CATL gets a guaranteed customer,
Right.
and the car companies get to work with the leading battery innovator. But hold on, we've also got some information about CATL venturing into some unexpected areas.
Okay.
Ride-hailing services, autonomous driving technology, even battery swapping infrastructure,
Wow.
and semiconductors. That seems like a leap from batteries.
It might seem like a leap, but it's all part of their grand plan.
Okay.
They've recognized that semiconductors are absolutely crucial for electric vehicles.
Right.
And that the global supply of those components can be unreliable. By getting involved in this area, they're aiming to ensure a stable supply for themselves
Right.
and potentially gain a competitive edge.
It's like they're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
Yeah.
They're thinking several moves ahead and looking at the entire ecosystem, not just their little corner of it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
They're anticipating the needs of the industry and positioning themselves to meet those needs before anyone else even realizes they exist.
Yeah.
It's a brilliantly proactive approach.
And all of this leads to a question that's been buzzing around the EV world.
Yep.
Is CATL planning to make their own cars?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
There have been hints and rumors. They made an early investment in Byton,
Okay.
an EV startup, but that didn't quite take off.
Okay, so maybe strike one.
Maybe. But more recently, they've become a major player in Avatry.
Oh,
a joint venture with Chang'an Automobile. And get this, Huawei.
Huawei. As in the tech giant that's been making waves with their smartphones.
That's the one.
Oh, wow.
And this partnership is developing a new generation of smart electric vehicles. And CATL is right in the thick of it.
It's almost like they're saying, we've powered everyone else's cars, why not make our own?
That's certainly a possibility.
Right.
They've got the technology, the resources, and the partnerships to make it happen.
Right.
It'll be fascinating to see what they do next.
But even if they don't end up making their own branded cars, their influence on the future of the EV industry is undeniable.
For sure.
We're talking about a company that's aiming for a 50% market share in a global industry that's projected to enter the terawatt-hour era for battery production. That's a lot of batteries.
It really is. Analysts are predicting that the global demand for EV batteries could be over 1,000 gigawatt hours, which is 1 terawatt hour by as early as 2025. That's a staggering amount of energy storage capacity. And CATL is making moves to be a major supplier in meeting that demand.
So how are they preparing for this enormous surge? We touched on their acquisition strategies for raw materials, but what about their production capacity?
They've been on a building spree.
Okay.
They have 8 major production bases in China and 1 in Germany already up and running.
Wow.
And they're not stopping there. By 2025, their planned production capacity, including their joint ventures, is projected to be somewhere between 500 and 600 gigawatt hours.
Whoa, that's essentially half of the estimated global demand.
It is.
They're putting their money where their mouth is regarding growth ambitions.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
But it's not just about churning out massive quantities of batteries.
Okay.
They're also focused on quality and efficiency. In fact, they've been recognized by the World Economic Forum as a lighthouse factory.
That sounds impressive, but I'm not familiar with that designation. What does it actually mean?
It's a big deal. The World Economic Forum uses this designation to recognize companies that are at the forefront of what they call the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
Or Industry 4.0. CATL has implemented cutting-edge technologies like AI advanced analytics and cloud computing in their factories.
So they're not just building batteries, they're building smart factories that are as advanced as the technology inside the batteries themselves.
Exactly, and the results speak for themselves. They've achieved incredibly low defect rates.
Wow.
While also increasing their labor productivity and reducing their energy consumption.
It's like they're getting more efficient and sustainable all at the same time.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. But even with all of this capacity and efficiency, there's still a big challenge looming, right? The whole battery shortage we keep hearing about.
That's the big elephant in the room. Despite all the efforts to ramp up production, most projections show a significant shortfall in the global battery supply in the coming years. Some estimates even suggest the gap between supply and demand could be as high as 40% by 2025.
So even if CATL hits all of its ambitious targets, there still might not be enough batteries to meet the demand.
Right.
That sounds like a potential roadblock for the entire EV industry.
It's definitely a concern. And this shortage could lead to price increases, which could in turn slow down the adoption of electric vehicles.
Yeah.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
I imagine this puts even more pressure on companies like CATL to innovate, to find ways to produce batteries even more efficiently and cost effectively.
Absolutely. The race is on to develop new battery chemistries, streamline manufacturing processes, and even find ways to recycle and reuse battery materials. It's a challenge, but it's also an incredible opportunity for those who can solve these problems.
So CATL's success, or lack thereof, could have a ripple effect on the entire EV industry.
Definitely.
And maybe even the global economy as a whole. No pressure, right?
Right.
But seriously, it's amazing to see how a company that started making batteries for iPhones has become so central to the future of transportation. What stands out to you as the most remarkable aspect of their journey?
For me, it's their remarkable adaptability and evolution.
Okay.
They faced a serious setback early on with those, shall we say, energetic phone batteries, and turned it into a catalyst for innovation. They recognized a major shift happening in the tech world with electric vehicles, and made a bold bet on that future, even when it was considered risky.
Yeah.
And they've consistently stayed ahead of the curve, anticipating trends and positioning themselves for success.
And they've done it all incredibly quickly.
They have.
It's only been a handful of years since they were a relatively unknown supplier, and now they're leading the pack globally.
That's really incredible. It really highlights that incredible pace of innovation we're seeing, particularly in China.
Yeah.
Companies like CATL are like shaking things up, challenging the established players in the global tech scene.
For sure.
And they're doing it through a combination of like clever strategy.
Right. Government backing and a relentless drive to like execute their plans.
Yeah. And speaking of government backing, we can't overlook the role that Chinese industrial policy has played in CATL's success. Those policies we talked about earlier, the whitelist, the subsidies for higher energy density batteries.
Right.
These were deliberate moves by the Chinese government to nurture and support its domestic electric vehicle industry.
It's a clear example of how government intervention can shape the direction of an entire industry.
It is.
And in this case, it seems to have worked remarkably well.
It has.
China is now the biggest EV market in the world.
Right.
And companies like CATL are reaping the benefits.
It's definitely a model that other countries are paying attention to. The U.S., for example, has recently passed legislation with the goal of boosting its own domestic EV production and battery manufacturing.
So we could be on the verge of a kind of battery arms race as countries compete to secure their place in this electric future.
It's a real possibility. And this competition could actually be a good thing in the long run.
Okay.
It could drive even more innovation and investment in the EV space.
Right.
Leading to better products and hopefully lower prices for consumers.
Competition usually does lead to better options for everyone.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder about the potential for like trade tensions.
Right.
Or even like protectionist policies.
Yeah.
We've already seen some friction between the US and China regarding trade practices. And it's possible that this could spill over into the EV industry.
That's a valid concern. So while the growth of the EV market presents a huge opportunity for companies like CATL,
Right.
there are also some geopolitical challenges to navigate.
Absolutely. And these challenges are intertwined with broader questions about sustainability and the responsible management of resources.
Yeah.
The demand for materials like lithium and cobalt is increasing rapidly.
Right.
And we have to consider the environmental and social impacts of mining those resources.
It's a critical point. It's not just about building more batteries.
Right.
It's about building them in a way that's ethical and sustainable. CATL has publicly committed to responsible sourcing and sustainable manufacturing practices, but there's always room for improvement.
And that brings us back to you, our listener. We've unpacked a lot of information about CATL's remarkable journey.
We have.
Knowing what you know now, what do you think will be the biggest challenge or opportunity for them in the years ahead?
Okay.
Will they maintain their dominance, or will new players and technologies emerge to challenge them?
That's the question everyone's asking, and it's an exciting one to ponder. The landscape of the EV industry is constantly changing.
It is.
There are technological advancements, government policies, consumer preferences, and even global politics all swirling around.
It's almost like trying to predict the future, isn't it?
It is, and that's what makes this industry so captivating.
Yeah.
The possibilities seem limitless.
Right.
And companies like CATL are at the forefront of this transformation.
So, as we've seen, CATL's story is anything but ordinary. They've gone from powering our smartphones to powering our cars, and they're not showing any signs of slowing down.
What's truly remarkable is how strategically they've positioned themselves for the future.
Yeah.
They're not just riding the wave of EV adoption.
Right.
They're actively shaping it.
And that's a development we'll all be watching with great interest. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of CATL.
Yeah.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
I hope so.
What are your takeaways? What stood out to you? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Let us know.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more explorations of the trends and technologies shaping our world.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep questioning. And perhaps most importantly, keep those batteries charged.